Gentlemen, welcome to episode number 25 of Christ Over Fear. I am your host, Chad Jenkins. September 7th, 2022, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. 12:01. We are 1 minute late on a comms check. That's okay, though. Hey, I'm a little bit rusty. I'm not going to lie. A little bit rusty with it being, about 5 weeks. We transitioned Christ Over Fear to, instead of once a week, every Wednesday, we're doing once a month, the first Wednesday of every month. So that was revealed last month in August. And the reason behind that is just we have 25 episodes. This is the 25th right now. So we do have a plethora in the library on YouTube. If you go to the YouTube channel, Christ Over Fear, and then also just to kind of slow the pace a little bit and work on these episodes that come out once a month. I think we can do a little bit of bang for the buck, if you will, on really concentrating on those and also not burning myself out, quite honestly, with all the workload behind the scenes. And also the day-to-day stuff. And that brings me to the next thing. It's been about a month. It's been 5 weeks since our last episode. Mike Kelvington, who was unbelievably awesome. What a great episode. If you want to go back and check out episode 24, he is at the Ohio State University running their ROTC program there. And is just doing a phenomenal job. West Point grad, 2005, Army Ranger. But that brings me to the Ohio State University. And now that we are officially in fall and football season with the kickoff of last weekend and all the college games, I do want to say something to the audience right now. And that is, if you're an Ohio State Buckeye, and even if you're not an Ohio State Buckeye, fan, but you want the experience of an Ohio State game, I highly recommend you reach out to me. Hit me up on info@jenkins-group.com, info@jenkins-group.com. I'll get you squared away because the Ohio State football program does something unbelievable. And we just did it as a family this past Saturday when they played number 5 Notre Dame. And they had these military veteran tickets. You have to buy them at the sticker price, the tickets. You get 2 typically. You buy those tickets, but they will allow for you to get pregame sideline passes on the field to watch warmups, and then also bring you right outside the locker room to meet Coach Day. He comes out before the game. He meets every military veteran family. He takes photographs. Jim Tressel, Coach Jim Tressel is the one who started it at the Ohio State University, and it has continued. And Coach Ryan Day continues to do that, and it's an unbelievable experience, especially for kids. So my daughter and my son both got to experience that, and it was awesome. So yes. I love Ohio State. I grew up going to Ohio State football games, but even outside of that, just what they do to take care and honor the veteran community, the military community, is pretty special. I don't know if a bunch of other universities do that or not, but I know it's special at Ohio State. So I'd highly recommend that. Second thing I'd like to talk about is really, and it's my kind of journey right now. And I've limited the amount of going on, weekly with this show. And so that's slowed my pace on being on LinkedIn. It slowed my pace on being on Instagram to kind of promote the episodes and put them out there. But I have to be honest, it's actually been beneficial not to be on LinkedIn as much. And it makes me recognize, wow, I like to promote these episodes. I like to promote the guests. I like to promote the message of Christ, obviously, that we all need. Every single person needs to hear. But there's also the balancing factor of recognizing, man, I was on it too much. I quite frankly, I'm probably still on it too much. And it's made me recognize that I need to shift and focus to more in-person impact. And what can I do in person to have impact as much as possible? And right now, with football season, and I will talk about football a lot today. My guest will talk about football a lot today. So if you hate football, this episode might not be for you, but pound sand. I'm joking, kind of. But with that, the in-person impact, I'm coaching my son's 5th and 6th grade Dublin Football League Dallas Cowboys team. And man, that's the in-person impact I can see that, God's really afforded me. God's given me that opportunity to do, not only with my son, which is unbelievable because I only get 1 year to coach him. This is his first year of tackle football. It's the only year I get to do that before he starts middle school football next year. And I wanted to have that because my dad had that with me. I remember my first year playing tackle football, 6th grade, he was an assistant coach, and that was impactful to me. But then with the other young men, there's 15 young men on this football team, and it just made me realize the life applications that football has, even at the youth level, even at 5th and 6th or 3rd and 4th or whatever, middle school, high school, and so on. The impact that game can have on young men and setting them up to understand how that game can help them throughout their life, throughout the adversity they will face in life, and how influential, impactful coaches are and coaches can be to pave the way. I think back to my guest I had on this episode, Coach Todd Alice, who is now at Dublin Kaufman, back at Dublin Kaufman High School as the defensive backs coach, but he's been years as a high school head coach, principal, athletic director, Ohio State University director of player operations, University of Alabama under Nick Saban as player operations down there. And he said it best. He said, Chad, the kids have not changed. This generation of youth is no different than when I coached kids back in the 70s. He's like, what screws them up is adults. Adults is what screws them up. And it was truthful. It was honest. But we also have the derivative, the opposite of that effect is how impactful on a positive note we can be as coaches, as parents, as teachers, the hardest job that's out there. So I say that because although I'm slowing the pace down on this show, I think slowing it down has also pulled me off of as much social media because I don't have to be on it as much. And it's actually been important for me to recognize that it's our in-person, impactful conversations that we can have that are probably where we need to focus more effort on than the social media aspect. All right. Now, enough of that. I've gotten that all out of the way. Most importantly, is today's guest, my center on the Army football team, Dustin Plumadore, a man who I continue to have a strong relationship with, even though we don't get to see each other quite as often as we used to, obviously, for life and families and all of that. But somebody that I can count on, that I truly call a brother, that I can call at any time. And I know he'll, 1, pick up the phone, and 2, he'll be there for me, whether it's to listen, whether it's to advise, whether it's just to be a friend, a mentor, a brother, all of those like. So I've known Dustin since 1998. He's a Saranac Lake high school graduate, class of, I think, 1998 it would be. And then he went on to play football for 4 years at West Point. He was the co-captain of our team our senior year. He's also All-Conference USA that year, as well as All-East. I believe he was in All-East selection on the football team, or for our football team as well. He went on, graduated in 2002, became a field artillery officer in the United States Army, served for 5 years as an artillery officer. And then upon exiting the military, he got into the medical device sales field. And then we'll talk to him about his journey in law. And he went to law school, became an attorney. He's a practicing attorney now, kind of worked his way up. He was a district attorney for a county, I don't know, a Clark County, I believe, off the top of my head. So he's a district attorney, and now he is in the private sector, an attorney in Richmond, Virginia area. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest today. What's up, man?
Not much. Can you hear me?
I got you. I got you loud and clear. What did I fail in my introduction of you?
Not a thing, man. You hit it all. That's it.
All right, that's it in a nutshell. But all right, I got to figure this out. I got major static or major back. Can you hear me now as I'm talking to you? Can you still hear me?
Can you hear me? Or
yes, I've got you. All right. Whenever I talk, I need to turn my mic off so that way I don't get audio feedback. And then once you talk, so this will be great because this will mean I get to shut up and listen. and you get to talk the majority. So bring us up to speed, Dustin. How did you choose West Point? How did you go from, an 18-year-old kid in upstate New York to deciding you wanted to go to the United States Military Academy and kind of your path in the military?
Yeah. So Saranac Lake's about 4.5 hours due north of West Point. The closest major city is Montreal. It's like an hour and a half away. Hockey country, Winter Olympic country. Football's not a big sport up there, but it had always been my passion and what I'd always been obsessed with from a young age. Worked my tail off, started getting some interest from schools, and of course the letters come in from everywhere. It could be as far west as Nebraska, as far south as I think really Virginia was it, but it was a lot of schools, like 50 or so schools, D1 just sending letters. And so I was off to a great start, and I had my heart set on playing Division I football. But I also had decent grades in high school, and that meant if you're decent grades and good at football, the Ivy Leagues come knocking also. And my very first football game I ever went to was West Point. And I was like 5 years old, came to a game. My grandparents lived in Kingston, New York, and came to a game I thought was awesome. But of course, I didn't really understand what it was then, other than just really cool. And the older I got, more kind of like, I know that's something I want to do. It wasn't sure. And my next exposure to West Point was they're playing, the 96 team was playing at Syracuse with Donovan McNabb. And ironically, Clint Dodson and I, who had been roommates at the UVA football camp that summer, bumped into each other on that sideline, both as recruits for Syracuse. And I was a junior, he was a senior, and so the coaches are all like talking to him, and I'm kind of an afterthought. I'm just, not a hot recruit. And I remember looking up in the stands and seeing all the cadets, and they just look just white as ghosts, just exhausted. They were in these really uncomfortable uniforms, and I kind of go to him like, there's no way in hell you're getting anyone's ever going to go to that place. We're on the right sideline here. Like, what are we thinking? And so, like I said, Ivy's recruited, and Syracuse and BC are probably the two schools I really want to play at the most. And I was getting recruited by BC and Harvard at the same time. My dad was like, hey, like if you're going to go to a school in Boston, you have an opportunity to go to both. You know which one you need to go to, right? Like we'll find a way to we'll pay for it. It'll be okay. You have to give up the Division I football game. This is really good football. And the offensive line coach at Harvard at the time was Joe Philbin, who was later, he's with the Cowboys now, was the head coach of the Dolphins, has been all around the NFL. He's a really good coach. So I strongly considered it, and I was like, well, what about these service academies? Army and Navy are sending me letters too. This Bonamego guy seems really, really interested in me playing there, and started talking to them more, and it just became one of those things that was just a natural fit. And I felt stronger and stronger about it, and we got invited down to the Army Navy game on an unofficial visit, and was on the sideline with all you guys in the prep school. And lo and behold, who do I bump into again but Clint? I'm like, you went here? Like, are you crazy? What are you doing? And he's like, no, it's awesome. This is great. We got a good crew, really good group in the prep school. Meet my buddy Zick, and Zick shook my hand. I was like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? Getting tough, Zick. And I was like, all right, these guys are cool. And so I came for an official visit, and that's where it clicked. It just, everything I wanted out of a college experience. It goes back to God, right? Or all these things I thought I wanted. I thought I wanted the big, it wasn't Power 5 then, but like a big school, big football experience. I wanted to do all of that, and I thought that was what I wanted out of college. And really, it was a circumstance where God was kind of like, no, what you want is the relationships. What you want is a powerful experience, really dedicated fans. A very close-knit group as a team, as a school, as a community, and something to set up your future. And the more I looked at it, and the more I met the guys and the team, I just like, I want to be these guys when I grow up. Like, this is very different than the other schools I visited, where it's like, one or two guys were great in the team, and I didn't have anything in common with anyone off the football team. Like the Ivies were all like that for me. I was like, this is not, I'm going to have 5 friends. They're going to play football. I'm not going to talk to anybody outside of that. Whereas West Point, instantly, everyone's an athlete. Everyone has the same type of makeup, morals, standards, and it just felt like home. And yeah, ironically, it was also the school that wanted me the most for football reasons. And so it was like, this would be great. Like, I'm highly recruited here, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm off to a head start because if they think I'll be a good fit, then I'm going to be a good fit and I'm going to work my way into it. And then I was off and running and haven't regretted it at all.
Nice.
Well, I think
what?
There's a few regrets while we're going through it. But looking back, zero regrets.
We'll hit those up. Here in a second. Hey, Regal is on. Regal says we got major feedback on your end. You're coming in quiet, and so try hitting your mute on there, and then maybe you just hit your mute button, and then see if it comes back on. Mark, I'm trying to take care of you, buddy. I appreciate you tuning in. We got another offensive lineman of the Army Football Brotherhood on here, and I like his instantaneous AAR.
Is it any better now or no? Give me a thumbs up. If not, I'll email a link over to my work computer and do it from there.
No, you're okay. Try turning your volume up a little louder, maybe. Now I don't have you at all. Now your volume is off. Let's see what we got. Hello? Are you there? No audio from you. What? Regal, now we have nothing on Dustin. And we were just getting to the good part. I wanted to hear what he had to say about his regrets at West Point. All right, you can are you going to go to the to your phone and do it that way? You can do it. If you click on that link, I can bring you on another. All right. So everybody, man, this is going to test my skills. It's been 5 weeks. I'm kind of rusty, and lo and behold, Dustin had to log out. I think he's getting ready to come back on his iPhone. So we might be able to get him up, rocking and rolling. I've got him up. Let's see what we got. How about now?
This any better?
Oh, dude. I don't even think he's on anymore. And it was good for 30 seconds until, now you're on. I think you can keep it.
Scary.
You have to go side to side. Oh, that looks good.
Is that better? Am I upright?
Yeah, scoot a little to your right. Other right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And you. And I don't have audio feedback.
All right. Sorry about that. I guess it's the iPad.
That's all right. All right. Hey, so tell us your regrets.
Regrets. At the time, going through it all, I think we all have the regrets. The day-to-day challenges and everything of the academy are tough. And I think one of the things that probably all of us struggle with is we look across the sideline at the other guys and realize how easy they have it and what they're going back to. And at the end of the day, and what we have to go back to, going back down to the barracks. It's like, well, they're going back to parties and all the fun stuff. So as you're going through the academy, I think it's we all kind of had that sort of, I don't say temptation, but grass is greener sort of aspect dangled in front of us. Mm-hmm. And I think that at the time that was my only regret was I wanted more freedom, more time with friends, more of the fun parts of college. But fact is, as we know, we look back, we had plenty of fun parts. We had tons of free time. We had everything that we wanted to get out of that aspect, and probably more than we needed at the time. So I think we avoided trouble, right? We stayed out of trouble for the most part during those years.
Yeah, but I like you saying that because I think sometimes it can be sold like, oh my gosh, it's, I think there's a little bit of hardness that helps, like that mentality, like to suck it up. And like, we don't have that, and we got to recognize that. And that helps for down the road type stuff of when it will really suck, overseas or in life, down the road, whether it's home life or combat or professional life where we're facing adversity. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I also like your point of addressing it and being like, man, there were times where, yeah, you look at East Carolina, playing at East Carolina, it's beautiful weather and like beautiful campus, and like we're flying back to this desolate area, at night in the windy nastiness, and they're all going out getting ready to have a good time after, winning against us. And there's a little bit of like, golly, like this is hard. So I appreciate you being that way and admitting to it. Because I also think, though, on the flip side is, the guys that form that team, the guys that formed our team, and I would even say the guys that formed the team today, there is that bit of hungerness. There is that bit of chip on the shoulder because we weren't selected oftentimes. The majority of players were not selected by those schools. And so there's a chip on the shoulder, a thing to prove that makes what Army football is about the mentality, the mental toughness, the ability to fight for all 60 minutes. So that is a character that's ingrained in the culture of Army football because of that, maybe too. What do you think?
I agree. But I think for me, that was a big part of it. A huge part of, I started our sophomore year, got my way into the lineup, and had a really fantastic year. And for me, that year was about proving all those schools wrong. And at the end of that year, I had the accolades, I had the recognition. Those coaches came back to my high school coach and were like, "You're right, he was good. We should have offered him." Big miss there, and we voted for him for the All East team. Like he's what you said he was, and it gave me that sense of satisfaction. Like, yes, I did it, I made it. But I think that motivator, once I had done that, I lost it. Like it's fleeting, right? It's once you've crossed that goal line, so to speak, there's no more points to score in that category at that point. Or at least for me, there wasn't. And I think my junior year showed it was kind of a lackluster year for me. And really, I mean, every single season I was playing a new position. Freshman year I was a guard. Freshman year I was a center. Sophomore year I was a guard. Junior year I was a guard in a completely different offense. And then senior year I was a center in a completely different offense. So every year I had something to learn. Every year it was kind of that challenge. But the chip in the shoulder did so much for me my sophomore year. And some of it came back and, I had something to prove. But I think the biggest motivator and advantage we have over any other program is the brotherhood. When you play for the guy next to you, you play for your brothers. I always call it paying the price, like Red Blake called it. If you got to pay the price. And if you pay the price, good things happen. And the price for me, I was actually messaging another former player. And I go back to kind of the three priorities of an Army football player as taught by Clay Daniels. We had one of those meetings, and Clay went up to the chalkboard and wrote God, family, Army football. And he put up his hand. He's like, "That's all there is to me. That's it. That says it all." And I thought that was cool then. I was like, "Oh, it's a really cool way to live." But I didn't always put God first then, or know what that looked like. And I was able to get the rest of the priorities. But if you get it right, the thing I always say about it to anyone going through the program now or after, if you can put God first, put family second, put Army football and your brothers and all those obligations third, at some point, number 2 and number 3 are going to overlap so much that you're not going to be able to tell the difference between them anymore. And you'll thank number 1 every single night for the rest of your life for that gift. And that's been my experience with it. And the better I've gotten at it, the better my life has been. the better rewards I've gotten, better experiences, new doors that open, new people entering my life, old people, brothers coming back into my life. Putting my faith in God first is something that I think was probably the biggest lesson and the most drawn out, and one I'm still figuring it out. Right, we all still are. But as I look back at like the biggest hardships, the biggest traumas of my life, is because I didn't do that, and my way out of that to get to a better place and get to the next level, or heal, or whatever the case may be, was to go back and putting trust in Him first. And it's always so clear in hindsight, and when you're going through it, it's right. And it just every single point, every big moment in my life, big life-changing moment is centered around that. And I think that's one of the gifts of Army football, is that I have this great brothers, mentors, every step of my life. Like every single place I've been, one of our brothers has been there right down the street, and been there to guide me, been there to help me. Between God and the brotherhood, it's been a wonderful ride so far. I can't wait to see the next, hopefully 50 years look like.
Dude, I love that, man. You're firing on all cylinders today, Dustin. That was sweet. And I forgot about the Clay Daniels writing that, but when you said that, I do remember that. And my question for you here though is, I guess, twofold. One, you kind of mentioned it, but then on your recruiting trip and everything else, you said, you were saying, okay, God, like I recognize like that's not for me. Those locations, it's more who I fit with, who I gel with, and it's the Army football brotherhood. But then you talk about kind of, you weren't quite there yet when you saw Clay write out God, family, Army football brotherhood. Twofold question. One, when you weren't putting God first, what did that look like? Like, were you trying to rely upon yourself, trying to figure out how you could do it? Or what did that look like when you didn't have Him first? And then the second one to that is, what does it look like? How, if it wasn't at West Point, like, and I know it's a process and it's a process for every single person, but how did you grow in that reliance upon Him over whatever else you were trying to rely upon prior to that?
I think one of the things we always hear as Christians is that you always trust God's plan. His plans for you are always better than what you think you've got in mind for yourself. And if you work against it, it's not going to pan out. It won't pan out well. You might get burned. He's got a lesson to teach you. For me, it's my big plan for myself was I wanted to take one more shot at football when the academy was over. I thought I've worked too hard for this. I just want to keep playing. I love this sport. I hadn't realized that at that point, it wasn't, after the 4 years there, it wasn't really even a sport of football I loved that much. It was that program and that team. I was one of those kids who spent my whole life just thinking about football all day, every day in class, paid attention maybe 5% of the time, teach myself the material while taking the tests, get through. And I made it, right? But at some point, like I used to be obsessed with college football, NFL football, but when I went to play at Army, I was obsessed about solely our program, our team. And I wouldn't watch any other college games. I just watched ours. It's all I cared about. And when I left, that's all I cared about. I didn't care about college football. I just hadn't realized that what I just been through was so special and so momentous for me that it replaced what I thought was my biggest passion. And going back to my plans, I was like obsessed with the idea of playing football. And like linemen, we had to lose whatever amount of weight to graduate, whatever that looked like to pass the body fat standards, the APFT, and all that. For me, I played our last game at around 310 pounds. Ended up graduating around 260. Got as low as 240 probably while in the Army, just obsessively working at it. But that my big plan was, okay, I know I have to do this to graduate, but in a few years, I'm going to Roger Staubach this. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to keep every ounce of muscle I can on this body. and then I'm one pasta bar away from playing weight again. I can do that, right? I can do that in the city. I can go from 265, 270 back up. I can do that. I know it, and I could try out and make a team and give this thing another run. And it wasn't God's plan for me. And stupidly, I went and took. I don't know if anybody remembers this. It was a big deal to me, but took one of those dumb diet drugs. It's like, football's over. I don't have to worry about abiding by our supplement rules. I can try this. This works for the other cadets. I can do this. And I was in the middle of a workout, and my heart just went berserk.
Yeah.
And I was in the basement of my barracks lifting weights, trying to get like an extra workout in. This is after the football. Our senior year's over, in the middle of like the weight loss stuff, just before finals, and like it's stopping. Like it would beat and then stop for a really long period of time. I was about to faint. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm alone in this basement, and I'm the only one working out, and I'm going to die here.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I didn't. Obviously, I probably wasn't even as traumatic as I thought. It's just, but that was what was in my mind. And I made it for the stairs, and it kept happening as I'm going up the stairs. I'm like, it's going to stop. It's going to stop. It's going to go back to normal. It'll be okay. And it just kept skipping. And I just dropped to a knee and said a prayer right there. And I was like, okay, God, I get it. You surrounded me with all these incredible mentors and coaches who told us this stuff's a bad idea. And I went ahead and did it anyway, thinking I know best. I got my own plan. I'm going to do what I think's best, to do what I want to do, which is, to keep this football thing going. And, it was just, I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Please let me survive this. And went back to my room, sat down for a minute, went to the cadet health clinic. They put me in EKG. They're like, you're okay. And then began kind of a really long journey for me through some really dark times, where I just essentially, I lost complete faith in my heart's ability to pump and to work for it. And or that night, that day, I actually went to Schiebel's room. Tyler has always been somebody I had relied upon as a fellow Catholic, and someone I did talk religiously with here and there. And he's like, let's just go to dinner. Let's go to Chili's, just relax, And I remember the whole drive down to Palisades and back, I'm like this, just holding my pulse and just like making sure my heart continued to beat. And it became an obsessive thing, and it continued throughout the rest of our senior year. No matter how many doctors I saw, give me a clean bill of health, like, no, your heart's good, you're good. No matter how many tough workouts I'd go through, like if I would hit these points and I would just go back to this, just testing it. Is it still beating? Is it going to give out on me? And I'd go to bed every single night wondering if I was going to die that night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just my dark time. And I don't know if that was a punishment for not trusting or a trial I was put through, but it wasn't until the very end, after went through all 5 years in the military with this too, just every single night expecting it. Just like, this is ridiculous. Chad's out in Iraq fighting a war. Nolan's downrange fighting a war. Like, these guys are doing real stuff, and I'm going to die in my bed in the middle of Lawton, Oklahoma, doing nothing because of some stupid decision I made. And so I'm carrying that kind of burden and shame with me about it too. And it was rough. I just felt just a lot of guilt. And it wasn't until I had to actually go under anesthesia for a different surgery, unrelated to that. And that was one of my biggest fears, is like, more medicine, going to sleep, passing it, like giving up control. This is going to be the end of it for me. Like, that was really tough. And I went into the procedure, and I was just like, okay, God, I trust you. Like, at some point I got to stop trying to control everything. And when I woke up from the procedure, I was my old self again. It was the most insane, like, years. And I know you and I talked about this before.
But you could feel it though. Like, you could feel, like, mentally, you could tell there was a difference.
I wasn't scared anymore. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like, you and I talked about, like, people with actual post-traumatic stress will get in these ruts, and they can't get out of that circular rut. And some more Vietnam vets were stuck in that for decades, and they can't get out of it. And I was headed there until I put my trust in God in that moment. And it was kind of the first example of that. Like it kicked me out of it. And I was back. I was like, how long is this going to last? Is this going to last until this like wonder drug they gave me, is out of my system? And, I was feeling normal. I was like, I want to hang on to this. Don't go back to that dark place.
Yeah.
The next day came, I felt normal. The next day came, I felt normal. But it was, for me, I looking back, it was like, wow, it was like that lesson in trust, giving up control, just putting it in his hands. And just like I should have done back then, that everything was going to be fine. Don't take this in your own hands and do something stupid like, take that pill. Just trust that things are going to work out. And from that day forward, good days, bad days, but like overall, my old self, right? I'm back to it. Anytime I kind of head back to that realm of being where I'm, checking this again, it's like trust, just relax, Dustin, trust. And that's been kind of the first time that sort of happened, that message came into my life. And I was like, there's something to this. I need to pay attention to this. And I wasn't even completely familiar with the proverb that, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. I hadn't even really thought about that. Like it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. I was just, okay. I just got to trust that, God's got me in his hands. And, but it's great that proverb popped up in future circumstances throughout my life. And
when do you find that, Dustin? Like, is it when you're trying to grasp onto control of things that are out of your control, or what's that look like when you have to lean back on, trusting him and not your circumstance that you're currently in, or not like currently, but that you're experiencing whenever that might be?
It's just the thing, obviously we have our responsibility and control the things we're supposed to and be an adult.
Yep.
But it almost like before I went to sleep, the last surgery I had before that was having my tonsils taken out. And I was like 5 or 6 years old. And when you're that age, it's like you just trust your parents, right? Whatever, it's going to be okay. Mom and dad say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I was having that procedure, just me, 27-year-old me, off, far away from family, and far too old to put it in my parents, hands, or to rely upon them for that. It was, in that moment, it was almost like, looking at God as my father. He is all of our father, the original. And just saying, okay, mommy and daddy aren't here, but our father is. And for me, it was like, sort of like, okay, I'm just going to put my faith in him, put my trust in him that he's going to take care of me through this. And I think it's just such a silly thing, but when I woke up, my life was different. I was back to my old self. It was like, okay, you passed this test. Here's your old self back.
Yeah.
And every day since then has been kind of, if I teeter close to the line, not following his path, I get little reminders, and it kind of push me back to that place again. And I just say, okay, no, stay on the path, trust your understanding, trust trust, God's plan and what he has in mind for me.
Well, and I want to ask you too, because I think this might play a factor. I don't know. I'll just ask it. So you were talking about sophomore year. I'm going to take us back to sophomore year in college, when you were super driven and you wanted to prove basically all the coaches of the other teams, the Boston colleges, those types, like, hey, you were wrong on passing on me. And then you had that blowout season and did really, really well. And then you got to that level and you were like, okay, this is it. Like almost like the climax, right? To a certain extent. And I don't know where your faith walk or how close you were with God then, but I'm going to bring up, when you were telling that story, it very much reminded me. I took Aubrey and Bryce, my two kids. This was 3 years ago. James Laurinaitis, he was a linebacker for Ohio State, and then he went on for the LA Rams, but I think it was St. Louis Rams when he was playing there, and had like a 13, 14-year career linebacker. Now he's an assistant coach actually on Notre Dame. Saw him at the game. But anyways, he came back and spoke to the middle school, to their FCA group. And it was awesome. He came in because he lived locally here, and his story was very similar. And he struggled with like anxiety as a child, and growing up had kind of anxiety all the way through, even through college and everything else. And really that's where he worked on it. But he said, you know, his goal his entire life was to get to the NFL. I want to get to the NFL. I want to get to the NFL. And he's like, I finally made it. And he's like, I finally got there. And he's like, I look to my left and right, and I'm like, this is it. And it reminded me of your story of that fight, that dog fight to make it, to prove oneself, to get to that. And I think to him at that point, and he had faith growing all the way up, but he recognized like, all right, it's not about my accolades. It's not about my success on earth. It's got to be something else, something bigger than that. And I think maybe I want to see if that's kind of where you got it, and where you recognize like, okay, I need something bigger than being successful on the football field, because this really, once I've reached that, it's not what I thought it would be. Is there something similar to your experience in that?
I think very similar. The irony is the things that I accomplished our sophomore year were all the goals I'd set out for myself before that. Precisely. The biggest thing was play Division I football, play Division I football, play Division I football. I was the second guy from my high school to ever play Division I football. The one before me he's like a big brother to my friend Cy Ellsworth, played at Syracuse. And Cy was a really good player. And Cy was all Big East. And he was NCAA All East. And he was a 3-year starter. And an NFL prospect, but didn't end up going. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I got to do what Cy did. That's my goal. I want to achieve those things. If I do that, I'm successful. I got to get to where he was. And a big part of that was showing the Syracuse coaches, like, yeah, see, the last guy you guys loved from my high school, my brother, like my good friend, I'm as good as him. And I set that goal, and it was all conference USA, so all conference, and NCAA All East. But I did it as a sophomore. He did it as a junior. And I was like, holy, it happened. Like I achieved this. And like, what happens now? I didn't have it in mind to set a goal for the NFL. So when I set the goals for the NFL, I didn't quite fully believe it. And it obviously wasn't God's plan for me. And God gave me that. God has given me everything I've ever sought out in life, whether it was sports, my spouse that I have now, my family, jobs I've sought after, friends, like degrees, everything I've sought out, He's given me. And sometimes I'll seek these things out, but like obviously that goal was much lower level than I probably could have taken it if I just had faith in Him and maybe set another goal and just continued on that path. Because I'll tell you that the very next spring football, I expected all those accolades to carry me through. And like, what is kind of surprised, like, what, people aren't just falling down on their backs because I step on the field in front of them. And I remember like the biggest wake up call I had was on a twist. Brandon Purdue came around from a defensive end position, looped around. I'm pass blocking, and he catches me right underneath the chin and knocks me flat on my back right in front of everybody. And they're all cheering and like, yeah, got you, Dustin. And I'm like, oh, like, how could that happen? Like, I was just this. He can knock me down in a practice. The very next play, Brandon goes to the other side of the line. They run the exact same twist, and he does it all over again. The exact same thing, flat on my back. And I'm like, okay, you need to wake up. You can't just coast your way through this and expect to have the same level of success that you worked for the year before. And at that point, I kind of lost the chip on my shoulder, and I had to find a new way to motivate myself. And I think the new way to motivate was to make our brotherhood proud. And I was like, okay, I want to. I don't want to. I'm not trying to spite anybody. I want to make these guys proud. I want them to cheer for me as much as I cheer for them. I want our team to be successful. I want us to get to a bowl game and do all these things. Once I, junior is kind of lackluster, and then senior year rolled around. I had a great senior year again, probably as good as my sophomore year, because I was able to replace those motivators with something a lot more meaningful, a lot less shallow, and achieved the goals again. And I was very satisfied. And the greatest honor was getting voted co-captain.
Yeah.
And that was wasn't expected. I told you that day I voted for you for that. I mean, that's what you meant to us. I was floored. I was like, holy cow. Like I was somebody they wanted to see succeed because they voted for me for this. It was the greatest honor of my life. And I think despite the chip on the shoulder, it can take you so far. It's great. It'll get you somewhere, but to reach new heights, I feel like your motivator has to be something, I don't want to say more wholesome, but something more pure. You can pull your energy from a negative place or pull it from a positive place. If you can pull it from a positive place, which is very tough in a sport like football that is so violent, and it's very easy to draw from the negative. But if you can pull from the positive place, you kind of reach the new heights that you didn't think possible.
Well, and going on that, I mean, that was well deserved by you. You were voted for a reason. You were the anchor of, the offense for, sophomore year on. You were the stead rock, foundation and the offensive line is the foundation of Army, of any team, but of Army football specifically. I mean, that's the foundation. And so I think it was definitely well deserved, and it was a team vote. And you as a leader of us. So I think that was well deserved by you. And I could imagine that it is probably the greatest honor of anybody, of you, Zick, Clint, Clarence, that when your peers are watching and are there every single day and they choose that's a testimony to what you meant to the entire team, offense, defense, special teams, which is awesome.
I appreciate you saying that, but you saying that just further proves why you're our guy, why you were our quarterback, and why we played so damn hard to protect you. Like that's it doesn't surprise me that you would say something so generous like that. But that's one of the reasons why we've looked up to you. One of the reasons why you were our leader as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But I mean, I'm honest in that. I mean, you were the foundation, and I love it that that's the way it was viewed upon others as well, because it was rightfully there. I guess getting to the here and now, what's it look like for Dustin to maintain? And I'm asking for me because I will be honest. Like, I mean, it's hard. It's difficult at times. It's difficult for me making him number one. I mean, I even when I'm going through the motions, and I hate going through the motions with him because I'm like, man, that's the last individual, Jesus or God, the Father, whoever, you don't want to put him as, just food for thought and going through the motions on. But I also have to be honest and be truthful. And like, sometimes it does feel that way. So what do you do making sure that he's priority number one and like keeping that fire, I guess if you will?
I think I'm very fortunate to have the wife that I have. And ironically, that trust, that exact quote, my now wife, Lindsay, had on her mirror in her house when we had first met in Las Vegas. And I remember when we were just first dating, I saw that, and she had it written by hand. And it was kind of like a message, almost like a waypoint that God put in the sand for me that this is the person for you. Yeah. And it was never more true when I came into those tough times where I'm kind of sliding back, and she was there to, give me a hug, talk me through it. whatever that anxiety was at that time, and always been there. And she's been such a powerful compass in my life as far as living our lives with God first, making sure God is present in our son's life, making sure our decisions are really focused in his teachings, and surrounded. Lindsay has been everything to me. Just having that partner in life, choosing somebody with that, I guess, those values, really been a huge part for me. Having friends, guys like Nate Hunterton, who gave me that exact quote on a plaque that sits on my desk at my office downtown. The exact quote. And
was it the proverb? Is that the one you're referencing?
Yeah. Over and over again, like that would pop up.
Yeah.
And so I've been fortunate enough that God's giving me these reminders of, listen to what this person's saying, do what this person does. That's always kind of helped me stay there and then say, okay, then I pick up the Bible that Billy Wilson, our other brother, gave me during a dark time. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think that it's some very similar quotes are highlighted. That he went before he mailed it to me. He highlighted and sent it to me.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate that putting God first has been a good reminder. Our friends, our brothers, my family have been consistently reminding me of that. Which 20 years ago, 30 years, 25 years ago, God wasn't a big part of my life at the time. Like I grew up going to Catholic school, but it wasn't a popular thing, wasn't something I really stuck to, and lost my way, I think, for a good period. And I think he just comes back in with reminders, and he reminds us to do that and to put him first. And putting him first is just following his teachings for me right now. My opinion might change in a few years because, like I said, I'm still learning, but follow his teachings first, and then everything else takes care of itself.
Well, dude, I think that's a pretty great way to wrap up the episode, because I think you're spot on, and I love that you talk about how God is using others in your life to point to him, because it's not always about going not that going to church on Sunday is a bad thing. It's never, I'm not trying to say that, but it's not what we outwardly do to feel like we're doing all the right things and checking all those boxes is oftentimes how he uses others. And that's ultimately the church, right? That's ultimately what Jesus was talking about. The hands and feet of his church are those in our life who will reflect him, will be an image of him, and will point us back to him. Your wife, Lindsay, Nate Hunterton, Clay Daniels, Billy Wilson. I mean, all of those people that you're talking about are reflecting his image and pointing you to him, and continue to do so today. I mean, I think it's what we have to also be, I guess I shouldn't say we, I, and probably you, is be those image bearers for others, right? Use the reflection of him to others by acknowledging that we're grounded in him and that he's got to be our number one priority. And if not, we get off kilter. We get off azimuth. As you say, our waypoint is wayward when we don't have him as the number one priority. And to be willing to share that with others. You coming on here today, sharing that story, Dustin, sharing the story of the experience in the basement of the barracks, all the way through the surgery years later. I mean, all of those, that will resonate, but you reflect the image of him, how you point to him. So I think that's huge, man. I appreciate you being on today.
Well, thank you. And yeah, it's ironic you say that, because I was at Mass yesterday, and that was the exact message. Don't just be a disciple if you can be an apostle. Don't just be a student. You can help somebody else. And so that's why I love you're doing this, and everybody else has been on. Love hearing what Nolan's up to and everybody who's helping others. And if this helped anybody, awesome. And anyone wants to reach out, they're more than welcome. Open to always call me anytime.
Well, I guarantee you it will. I guarantee you there is one, if not a lot more, but there is one that it will resonate and spark something with. I have no doubt about that. My faith is certainly in that because it's God's story. It's God's story united with you, and that can't be refuted by anyone else. And it encourages others to hear that. And I think for anybody out there who, listens to this episode, I hope it encourages them that, when we share our authenticity of when times were not always roses, but we had to rely upon someone other than ourselves, and we rely upon him, and we are able to share what he has done in our lives, man, that sparks a desire, that sparks a fire in the individual who needs to hear it at that moment. So I don't doubt that for a second. I love you, man. I appreciate you coming on. And I appreciate you sharing your story, man, because it was impactful to me and it invigorates me, and I'm thankful to hear it.
Thanks, brother. I love you too. And keep sharing the good news. You're doing awesome.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right.
All right, folks. Hey, that's episode 25 of Christ Over Fear, live today, September 7th, 2022, with my former Army football center, Dustin Plumadore. And I hope you enjoyed that episode. And until next month, the first Wednesday of October, continue to fight the good fight. Thanks. Have a good one.